All right. Come on. There we go. Can everybody see my screen? Yes. Hopefully. So.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. So thanks to you all for coming today. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to share this new system with all of you. Some general announcements.
Together.
Presentation is going to be geared towards the science users of MFP or STRS, our previous system. So those people that are requesting ship time from the U.S. Academic Research Fleet or requesting equipment from the U.S. Academic Research Fleet. If you're not a scientist, I think this presentation still could be useful because you kind of get a general layout of what MFP is, and you will know what your science users are seeing. So we have a lot of people on this call, so I ask that you please keep yourself muted if you're not speaking. If you have questions, we'll say please use the raise your hand function. We will have folks, thanks to Brandy and Bridget for looking out for folks who are raising their hand, and they can interrupt me and call on you. Or if you feel like we're not getting to you, feel free to just unmute yourself and ask the question. I want this to be as interactive and useful as possible. So feel free to follow along in the application, mfp.us, if you choose to. There's many of you who, the best way to do this is to have two screens, one where you can see me and another where you can see the application. If you don't have two screens, you'll be fine. I mean, just follow along with me, and this will be recorded as Brandy just clicked. So, so you'll be able to view it again in the future if you need to. Some of you might already have accounts at mfp.us. The system is fully automated. So if you go in there and try to create an account and it says your email's already used, that means you already have an account, and you just have to go back to that home screen and click that forgot my password, and it'll reset your password to it. And so for today's presentation, I'm going to run through some slides, and then we're going to jump right into the application. I'll show you the modules that are useful to you all, and then we'll go back and kind of end up with a few slides. Again, I ask that you stop and ask questions whenever you'd like. All right, next. So of course, you know, with any new application, we need some new acronyms. So we're moving away from the ship time scheduling, ship time and scheduling system, SCRS, and we're moving to Marine Facilities Planning, mfp.us. And then we're also moving away from the old ship time request form, the STR, and the new form, which is very similar to the old form, but it's got a new name, and it's called the Ship Time and Marine Equipment, SME, application. So just those two acronyms to keep in mind. So the goals of today's presentation is just to give you an overview of what marine facilities planning is, where it came from, then show you how you navigate through the system, show you the modules that are useful to you, the schedule module, the research planner module, and the science portal module. And then finally, we're going to wrap up and just give you a little bit of information on how we're moving from STRS to MFP. All right, so what is marine facilities planning? So MFP, Marine Facilities Planning, it's a joint venture between NIOS, which is the Netherlands Academic Research Fleet, and NERC, the UK, and MAS Software Engineering, MSE. And so the initial project was started by NIOS in 2011, and it was called Track and Trace. And the main goal of this was simply to do a better job of keeping track of their instrumentation and equipment, and then also keep track of that specifically for the customs warehouse regulations. So they were having problems keeping track of things and then creating the right reports for customs. So they created this Track and Trace. And then once this was so successful for them, they said, wow, what else could we do with this? And so they contacted NERC, and between the two of them, they created what MFP is today, which is a multi-modular system to facilitate integrated cruise planning process. So the big thing I want to point out here is that this was specifically made for planning for academic research cruises, right? It's not a system that was built for shipping companies or cruise ships or anything like this. It was built to do what we're doing. So here is a list of the organizations around the world who are currently using MFP. It's growing. So we've got here now the Netherlands and the UK and the Germans and the Australians and the Australian Antarctic Program. We have the Saudi Arabians and the Danish, and then us and a bunch of others out here. So it is well used. But I will say that we have had to make in each of these instances, the core is the same, but we have to tweak it to match the operations. So the way UNOLS does business is different than any other of these operations out here. One of the big things is our size, right? Most of these institutions have 3 ships, 2-3 ships, something like that, whereas we have 18. And then the way that we schedule, we all schedule as a community, and then once a cruise or a project is scheduled on a ship, it goes down to the individual institutions to do the actual cruise planning. And then it goes back up in the PCAR process. It's another kind of community process, if you want to call it that. So we've had to make some tweaks to this MFP to make it work for us. So I mentioned that it is a multi-modular system. And so this is a list of the modules within MFP. Not all of these will be available to all of you, but we will run through them just so you understand the process. So the first one that's real important to all of you is this scientist portal. And this is where you're going to be going in and requesting your ship time, seeing the status of some of your requests, or when we get to the cruise planning phase, it'll also have your list of kind of to-do items in there. So once a ship timer or a SME is put into the system, it gets kicked to the scheduling system. So that is the schedule construction module. And this is where the schedulers do their magic. I will say they are in there right now actively working on the 2022 schedules, which we hope to be published in this fall. So once a project is scheduled on a ship, it gets kicked into the detailed cruise planning, which is done through the project management module. And then other modules that are applicable, obviously, is the inventory management, which is centered around equipment planning and instrument planning. There's modules around technician and crew scheduling and planning, personnel capabilities and personnel planning. And then over here, other modules of use to you all, we have the research planning module, which I'll show you in a little bit. The reporting module, which I'm pretty excited about, is going to have kind of at our fingertips pretty neat reporting functions. And then more for the technicians, there's an app and an offline functionality. So the cool thing here is that all this is integrated. It's not just one over here and one over here. All of this is integrated. So that it's a centralized place to store information and to be accessed by all the stakeholders. So the vision is the scientists can go in and find out what they need, the captains can find out what they need, the funding agencies can find out what they need, cruise planners, schedulers, everyone who's involved in this process can get into the system at the applicable modules and find what they're looking for. So no longer, we're hoping, the vision is that no longer do we have spreadsheets that get sent over here and updated, but forgets to be sent back over here. And so, information is lost. We're hoping we can streamline our information flow. So this is all rolling out pretty slowly. Right now, these are the 3 modules that we have available. The science portal, the schedule construction, like I said, where the schedules are, and the research planning module. We are just starting to roll out the cruise planning module, and it's kind of in its beta phase with a few institutions. So next, we're going to go straight. First of all, are there any questions so far? Joanne, it looks like you have a question.
Yes, I was just wondering if there's some interface going on with like the OBS pool, or is that going to be built into this?
So we're not there yet. We're in conversation with the OPSIC folks, and we're trying to figure out how the 2 systems are going to integrate.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we are in contact with the facility operators and pretty much most of the stakeholders, but like I said, it's this work in progress.
Okay, because eventually there'll be like OBS pools from other countries, right? Like ANU and has theirs, and
right.
That's thinking for the future, I guess. Okay, thank you.
Well, keep us informed. Any other questions? I don't see anyone. All right, moving right along. So we're going to break to the app. And let's hope these, let me just make sure my screens before we get, there's a time limit. So we just want to make sure it doesn't time out in the middle of my presentation here. All right. So as I mentioned, this is our home screen. I think most of your home screens when you log into MFP. So the one thing I want to point out here, and the most important thing in navigation, is this button right here to the left of your name. It looks like a stack of blocks, and if you click it, you can see the modules that are available to you. Okay.
Alice,
So
before we get too far, there's a question. Somebody's got their hand
go ahead.
raised.
Go ahead. Whoever had their hand raised.
Wei?
Wei?
Okay, I'll lower it and they can raise it again if it comes back up.
Okay, thanks, Brandy. Okay, so this button right here, again, to the left of your name, the stack of blocks, that shows you, if you click on it, it shows you the modules that are available to you. So right now, the schedule module this is what we're in right here. And this is where we're going to have all of our schedules will be viewed. So right now, we don't have any published schedules in the system, so we don't have anything to look at. We have, as you'll see right here, there isn't anything to look at here. But the thing that I want to show you is that is this lovely map of the fleet. And from up here, there's this button here that says ships, and you can choose what ships you want to see on your view. And then further, over here is this layer on the left-hand side, this stack of, looks like a stack of papers. These are the layers that are available. So you can add EEZs, you can add where the Argo floats are if you choose to. You can add, we don't have any existing deployments yet, but the vision is if there's other existing deployments out there, we can add them here. European, Australian ships, you can even add the ship tracks. This top one is bathymetry from the Gebco site. So it's a pretty neat little tool. The data is driven from their ship's AIS systems. So that's the map view. I want to show you what we're going towards. This is the UK system. It's actually the Euro system. And so they have, this is where their schedules are across the top here. And then the projects that are on these schedules are on the map below. Again, you can choose the ships. And some neat things here is that over here, it shows the current cruises that are on this view. You can click on a particular project, and you'll get all the information about that project, everything from the application to the final cruise planning information. It tells you the ports, and the chief scientist looked at that. This is the exports cruise. So you get all your information right through here. And again, the projects are on this map. And then finally, I'm not sure this would be useful to all of you, but there is a way to filter cruises by equipment. So if I want to see all of them that are using samplers and profilers, you can see how those cruises are still in colors where the others are grayed out. So that is the map. Oh, one other thing I wanted to show you on the map, which again, we will have these features on our system, are these 3 dots that are underneath the ship name. So here's the ship Discovery over here on the left. If you click one more dot, you get some basic information about ports. And then if you click one more dot, you get more details about the actual cruise. So here you'll see the date, the number of days, the dates, and then the PI throughout the projects. So that is what's coming, but we're not there yet. So that is the schedule module. Are there any questions about the schedule module? All right, well, we'll just keep moving right along then. All right, the next one module that I'd like to show you, I'm going back up to this name, my name, and just to the left of my name, the stack of blocks. And I'm going to choose the research planning module. So this is a pretty nifty tool that they developed to help us plan research cruises. I think a lot of people do this in Google Earth, but this is kind of neat that it's already integrated into the system. We have that same map and the same layers over here on the bottom right. You can see the layers. You can add bathymetry if you choose to, or we can just go with the base layer. And this add more, if you click add more, you can see national data sets. One thing that I want to point out here is we do have the NOAA Bathy gap analysis loaded in. And what that is part of NOAA's initiative to map our EEZ, not NOAA's, but the presidential initiative to map the EEZ. And this shows, it's a layer that shows us where the gaps actually are. Other oceanographic data sets, there's Argo floats that you can also see. And go ship lines are also added in. And we can add other layers if you have any interest in adding other layers from other projects. And we are happy to think about adding those. It's pretty easy. So the cool thing, that's just the fun part. That now let's say we want to start planning our cruise. So I'm going to start a cruise and I can click on select a departure port of Seattle. And you know what, we're going to go to San Diego. And you'll see how the system is dynamically moving and creating routes. And then through this map, we can actually add sample locations. And I'm going to deploy an ROV over here. So it's a matter of clicking on the type of station and then clicking on the map. You can add a waypoint, you can add a research area down here, and it's just a matter of double clicking when you're done and it ends. So you see how the system automatically generates the waypoints. So you can do this via the map, but the system also has a way of importing data sets that you might already have if you already know all your sample locations. So you can import, and I'm going to add a local file and select my file, and it's this coordinates file here, upload, done. Oh, now the map isn't, there it is. So then you see the map automatically uploaded, and here are all the sample stations that I had in that file. So things to notice here, the system is already saying, okay, sampling station number 2 is in the Mexican EEZ. This one here is this exclamation point is indicating that it's in a marine protected area. If you hover over Isla de Pacifica, Baja California Biosphere Reserve. So that's another, so that gives you an alert of things you might have to look out for in the future. Other things that are pretty neat about this is that you can change the ship speed. So you can say, oh, actually, we only want to transit at 6 knots from here. And when I go to station 2, we're going to be here for 3 days. So we can change this to 3 days. So things are pretty changeable here. And this is all goes together to create this total time. And that should help for you to know when you're requesting ship time. Eventually, you can save this file. So you can save it for using later. You can save it to the system or save it to your home location using this file. And then you can open your old files here too. So eventually we're going to link this to an actual SME, but for now it's its own standalone application or module to help with the cruise planning process. I guess another thing to point out here too is that you can export all this to share with others. I did show you already that this is part of the Bathy gap analysis is a layer on here, which I just wanted to make sure everyone knew about. All right. So that's all I have with the research planner. Does anyone have any questions about that? Joanne Stock, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is great that you could share it with other people. And I'm wondering if I can share it with someone who doesn't have a login on this system, or does that person also need a login on the system?
At this point, they also need a login on the system, but that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, because if I wanted to share it with people from like New Zealand, for example, that we want to plan some work with a New Zealand ship, is that okay? I don't see New Zealand listed as as a country here, but it would be very helpful to be able to do this.
I can't see why it would be an issue, but I'm writing it down just to think about it a little bit more.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions on this?
Yeah, Alice, this is Jules.
Go ahead, Jules.
Well, I logged into the site because I asked for a login whenever you announced that this was going to happen. And I don't see the map. Do I have to have special permission to see the map at all?
You might be in the wrong module, Jules. So you want to come up to here and go to the button just to the left of your name and click the schedule module.
Yep.
And then you can go across this top here.
I don't see that. That's all right. We'll work out. That's fine. We'll take this offline and do it another time. I just wanted to.
We'll talk afterwards. I will check your permissions, Jules. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Alice, we have a question in the chat from Lynn Butler. Can it be exported such as to an XLS file?
Yes. Yes, it can. So there's actually, I failed to mention that there's a version of this, if you want to say, within the actual application, which I'll show you in just a second, and which will also be pulled into the cruise planning process. So it's expected that this is going to be a part of the cruise planning process. Okay, next we are going to go to the science portal, which is here. So again, back up to this top left, click on the dots and you choose Scientist Portal. So this Scientist Portal, this is where you request new ship time, and this shows the active applications. So things that you already have in the system and the status of those things within the system. So let's start with this new application. Right now we have two different forms. We're working on the second one. This is the main form, the SME, and that's for requesting ship time. Other instances of this, they have a separate form specifically for piggyback cruises. So those cruises that know that they're going to go on somebody else's cruise, they're taking an extra day or just being a part of it. They have a separate request, and then we're going to create one more request over here, which is if you're trying to request equipment without ship time. So that's coming. But for now, this SME is what you want to focus on. All right, so that's for a new form. And I just wanted to show you down here. So these are active applications. These are nonsense things. So don't look, well, I mean, it's not nonsense, but it's not a lot of, I've just been assigning things in our test system. So don't look at any of this too seriously. But these are the applications I have for me and the status of these. So at this point, says I need to complete my cruise request form. I need to complete my SME. It's not submitted yet. In this one, these are my to-do lists, and this project here has already been scheduled. And so I have to work on my cruise participants and my cruise planning information. And that's still coming in the early phases. We're still in the early phases there of the cruise planning. And then this one, we only need cruise participants. And this one, there isn't any action. Things I want to point out here too is that there is this duplicate button. So that's available if you're doing a similar project several times. Some rules I wanted to point out that are in place right now is that each cruise must have its own request. And further, each cruise should have a descriptive name, and I'll go into that a little bit when we go into the form. And then finally, the SMEs are actually locked once they are submitted. And so they can be unlocked upon request, and we've gone back and forth about this, what's the right way to do it. The point of locking it is so that we can get a better handle on changes that are made, but I understand there are some people that are nervous about that. So we're trying this, and like I said, it's a work in progress, and so we will see how this goes and see what feedback we get. So next we're going to go through here. I have this OOI Pioneer Fall 22 cruise, and I need to complete my cruise request form. So if I click on what I need to do, I've already completed most of this, so that's why it's all checked off. But I will say that this form is based off of the old ship time request form. A lot of the same questions. The point here is that we're trying to get enough data that we can schedule the cruise, but we don't want to ask for too much information that it makes it super duper onerous. So we're hoping this is a little bit more streamlined. So here's an application note. I hope that you each will read all of this thoroughly. I'm going to not read through it right now, but that's for you to do. So we go to the next section, and this is the project you can see here. I'm on the project contacts. So we have a lead principal investigator. We can add co-PIs, chief scientists, if you're not going to be the chief scientist, and then a science party technical lead. So if you have a super tech who's going to answer all the technical questions about your project, then it's worth putting their information here. So again, we click next. This is the project information. And to be honest, I think this is the trickiest screen of them all. But so a multi-cruise project. So if your project is going to have multiple cruises, you would answer yes to this. Multiple cruises in a year or multiple cruises over several years, you still have yes. And the name that goes right here is the most general name, right? OOI Pioneer, BATS, HOTS, Cal Coffee, all that sort of stuff, a real general high level name. And that's the name that's going to be used to tie all of these SMEs together. So then under this project title, it's a little deceiving project title. So the name, we hope that you will add a little bit more information specifically about this cruise. So this is the OOI Pioneer Ray 2022 fall cruise, as opposed to their spring cruise, or cruise 1 of 4, cruise, anything that makes it unique. And then again, short name, add that unique identifier again. And the reason for this is that it helps the schedulers to know if they just see OOI Pioneer 2022, they're like, well, which one is spring, which one is fall? And this one helps them to get the right cruise at the right time. So next we have this research project description. And this is going to be a part of the schedule, so the public can read this. And what we've been doing lately, as we've been moving STRs over into MFP, we've actually been copying the abstract from the NSF website. So that is recommended. I recommend that again. If you want to do that, it's just an easy way because it's already written. But if you want to write something else, it's just some information for the public about your project. So summary fieldwork. This is the question that was asked on the STR, and then the general discipline. Next, we have funding source. So you can add multiple funding sources. You can, through this drop down, if you choose National Science Foundation, and if you choose, it'll give you only the options for National Science Foundation. And then again, if you choose Ocean Sciences, you only have the options that are available for Ocean Sciences. So you insert your grant number here and your status. I will say that there's a step within the process. Once you've submitted it, you can go back and update your funding status or update your grant number. So cruise location, this is kind of, you choose your preferred ports like before. Give us a little reason why you want those preferred ports, general location. And then here is where we get into that smaller version, if you want to say, of the research planner. So if you know your coordinates of your sites, you can import them down here, import coordinates file, right? Or if you want to be more general about it, you can open this map editor and you can use these tools on the right-hand side here and say, and add sampling stations and the like. So this is kind of interesting too. You see how it's not very efficient. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if this system has this feature in the top left here called suggest order, if you click suggest order, it rearranges it. I mean, not that you always want to do this, but it rearranges it to be the most efficient route. So you can use this as part of the SME. We're asking that you have to put in at least one sample location. I would, if you don't have your list of sample locations, put at least one on there, or put a research area. So if you click research area and you just start clicking around the map about the size of your research area, it gets added to your map. So the point of this is that we need to know where your research area is so that we can plan the proper amount of time from the proper ports. So at least one thing is required. Here's a list of all of the items that you added to the map. Again, you can download these coordinates, or you can import coordinates from somewhere else. And then down here, any information regarding your clearance or permitting issues. And so I don't know if you have any issues there, you add it. So next we go to the cruise location analysis. And so this is the handy tool which automatically shows you which EEZ your sampling sites are in. So this person's got a lot of work to do on their EEZ clearance requests. And then this one is also in a marine protected area. So it's pretty slick. Next, we have cruise dates, same as before. What's the preferred date? What's the earliest date you can go, the latest date, blackout days, any remarks about that, the number of requested days. I will say that this is not tied to the research planner at this point. So this is something you have to enter on your own. One thing I want to point out that always is confusing is the transit days. Transit days are defined as the number of days to transit from the requested port of departure to your first station, plus the days required to transit from the last station to your requested port. And so that's just to give us a general idea. Obviously, ports change sometimes, and schedules will be in touch about that if that happens. Ship selection. So the only difference here is that you can't just say, I want a global. You can just click all the globals or click all the ocean intermediates. And so that's the ship, and you want to say why you want that ship. If you have a multi-ship operation, yes or no. Science party, how many science party, how many different science teams, and then the number of technicians, and kind of a general outline of the technical support you'll need. And the point of this is that, so this helps the tech managers and the marine technicians prepare the proper, or assign the proper amount of technicians to the crews. And it gives them just an early heads up. So next we have a section on pooled and portable equipment, also similar to the old STR ship time requests. So you can click those. Some of them ask a few questions, but again, we're trying to keep the number of questions at a minimum. So clicking all through that and any sort of other information. Next, this is ship fitted equipment. So a neat little feature here is that it tells you which ship has the equipment. So the green check, that means that the Atlantis has a gravimeter, although I'd be curious if the Neil Armstrong might have a gravimeter too. Anyway, we're still working on verifying this data. So, but as far as ABCP, so we're working on verifying this list, but in the future, you'll see the ships across the top, whatever ships are requested, and then the check boxes around if that ship actually has that piece of instrumentation. So going down here, explain your rationale, indicate any other that you might need. The next section here over on this left we'll see is the user supplied equipment. And so this is where you tell us any kind of larger equipment that you're going to bring that might affect cruise scheduling, right? So OI needs a larger ship. Or we have, you know, the second question here is, does your project require any wires or over the side handling for your science supplied equipment? And again, this will help us in the scheduling process. So this is asking if you, the scientists, are going to bring any vans. This is not including the lab vans from the pooled vans. And then whether your equipment has any sort of export regulations, and more information about, I ITAR and EAR, there's links right here if you don't know what that is. Next, we're getting to the end here, marine environmental impact assessment. So these are just some yes, no questions to give us a better idea of the environmental impact. Radioisotopes, are you planning to not plan to recover, or is any of the material not planned to be recovered hazardous? All this sort of stuff. Just yes, no questions again to give an idea for and a heads up in this cruise planning process. So finally, we get to just making sure I go through all my notes here. Finally, we get to this cost estimate. And the biggest thing I want to say here is that it's an estimate. It's a big estimate. If you hover over this ship cost, you'll see the various ships that you requested and their day rates, which we're also verifying this information. And I can say the day rates are from back in 2019, which is the last year we actually had normal day rates, pre-COVID day rates, but it's in the cost that's seen here is an average of these ships. So if you're requesting a whole bunch of ships, it's not going to be it's not going to be the best estimate ever. How about that? And so I stress here that if the other thing that is not included here are any of the ancillary facility costs, if there are any involved. So NDSF costs, OBSIC, who else? Coring facilities, any of those costs are not listed here. And so if your project is not funded as any other source other than NSF, OCE, and ONR, it's really important that you work with those facility equipment operators and also the ship operator when you finally get there to know exactly how much money you need to ask for in your grant. So that's all I have. I guess a quick overview here is this top right button, which I can't stress enough, to the left of your name. It shows you the modules that are available. The schedule module will eventually show us the ship schedules, and it'll have the map of the projects. It also has the map of the fleet. The research planning module is that module that you can use to help plan your cruise. And then the scientist portal is where you go in and request your ship time. And eventually it'll house or give you the list or the status for your cruise planning. Okay, now, does anyone have any questions from there?
We have a couple of questions that have come in the chat, and they've been waiting very patiently. Is piggyback analogous to previous ancillary ship time requests?
Yes.
That was an easy one. And then we have, what is the format of the coordinates file, CSV? Are there instructions for creating it? The ones that you import. Yes, there are.
Within here, if you want to say file import, here it says import from template. And so it'll allow it, you can download a template and then you can add it in. The template will guide you through it. And you can use, I think, almost any format. Yes, it might take a little bit of playing around. I'm trying to remember. Hold on one second. Let's go to cruise location. So here you've got the choice of decimal, DMM, and DMS. So the different, here's that, and here's this. So I think it's pretty flexible is the answer, but it's worth playing with.
Another question from Eric Benway, is load cost estimate at vessel's home port only?
Is load court, say that again, I'm sorry, hold on.
Load cost estimate at vessel's home port only. So in the costs estimate.
Eric, I'm gonna have to look that up for you.
Okay. Maureen Conte would also like to know, what about multiple cruises with mostly the same info?
Yes. As of now, those cruises, and I know that cruises like Bats are going to be, anyway, this is not ideal for cruises like Bats, and Maureen, too, you have multiple cruises in 1 year. So From your portal, there's this duplicate button, and we've made it so that everything duplicates except for the date, which can be dangerous because then we're duplicating information that may or may not be correct. But in an effort to keep it easy for projects that have multiple cruises in a year, we went that route. And so when you duplicate it, all you need to do is go in and change the dates. It does make you click through the screens just to verify that everything's correct. Then you change the date and you can submit it.
A question from Kenneth Olson. Any way to include asks for bandwidth expansion into the process?
So there are ways in the, yes, how about that? We don't have it as part of the SME. So this is the early, when the people are putting their proposal in, but we can easily ask a question about that if that's what we feel we need to do. There are definitely questions about that when we get into the cruise planning, the more in-depth cruise planning side. But if the high season folks feel like they need it at this phase, we can ask some more questions we can add.
From Lisa Beal, is it possible to collaborate with a co-PI on the request form within the system?
We are working on permissions and who has access to what. And so I think at the moment it's restricted to the PI, but I have a request into the developers that we need to have it be able to go to the others, potentially the co-PIs. So I'm hoping that feature is coming. It is coming, it has to come. So that's one thing is I'm not sure I said it, but this is a work in progress, right? We're rolling this out and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't work, and we can make modifications. I've been super impressed with the developers about asking for changes for the way that we do it. They're not only like super can-do people, but they also have really great ideas on how to make this happen. So if you find things in the system that just don't work or don't make sense, we want to hear about it.
Great. From Robert Pickert, am I understanding correctly that once you submit an SME, you can't change it?
Yes, that is how it is right now. And if I'd be curious to hear, well, I should say that you can change it. You just have to ask for it to get unlocked.
Okay. What's the process for asking?
You can either email me or email mfp.us and say that you're interested in having your the SME unlocked.
From Dan Fernari, when we go into the planner and see that we have current funded cruise applications that are active, who has entered those? Do we need to go into them and edit them? Is that possible?
Right now, that's not possible to edit them, but if you need to go in there and edit them, you can let us know. I was going to get to that whole, Dan, about, I'm going to answer your question about how they got there in just a minute.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Another question from Lisa Beal. Can you save a request and come back and edit before submitting?
Yes. There's a here, let's see. At the top, when you get to the end, in the summary, you can download it as a PDF, which is what you need for NSF grants. You can save but don't submit, or you can submit the application.
It looks like I got through all the questions in the chat. There are some folks who are having some trouble logging in, but I think Bridget is all over that.
Oh, you're the best, Bridget. Thank you.
Could I ask another question? This is Dan again.
Sure.
So I just actually checked and went into what is active in my portal. And when I go into those applications, it says proposal stage finished. And then I basically can't click on anything in here. In other words, I can't even see what it is to see if it's accurate or not. So that's no, actually, okay, no. So now I see that I can view something. So, right, okay, so I can view it. So, right, so somebody must have ported this over. Got it. Okay, sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, okay, yeah.
All right, so if you view the workflow, let's see let's try this one. So proposal stage, this is the actual workflow. So the system works in workflows. So you complete one step, then you complete the next step, and you complete the next step. There's not that much to this, pre-cruise workflow. You complete your form, you confirm your funding, and then you add the request to the schedule. And so when you click this workflow, if you see over here, you can see the status, your step is complete. And then if you want to view this request, you click view. And then you see the actual SME that was submitted. Okay, so that's under, you can go from your portal. Again, you can view the workflow, and that brings you into that particular workflow, and then you can view the items within that workflow. Okay, let me go finish up with a few slides, and then we can have a few more questions. So STRS, we are moving. We're in the process of moving, I should say, from STRS to MFP. All the 2022 scheduling is being done within MFP. So right now, we have a redirect in the STRS system, where if you click, I'm going to start a new project, it kicks you over to MFP. And so folks that have been, and that started, gosh, several months ago. And we've been collecting future SMEs in MFP already. For 2022 projects, the funded projects have already, for the most part, have already been moved over. If you find that there's a project that you think you have that's funded in 2022 that's not moved over to MFP, let me know. Send me the STR ID, and we can make sure that we get it sent over there. We will begin moving other 2023 and beyond projects from STRS into MFP fairly soon. It hasn't been our priority right now because we've been trying to get this 2022, the system ready for 2022 projects. So that is coming. If you have projects in STRS for 2023 and beyond, or 2022 funded, they will get over to MFP, and the PIs are not required to transfer these over. And then finally, like I said, this is a work in progress, and so we are looking for feedback. It's a new system. It's a pretty dynamic system. It is very different from STRS. So we hope that you guys can keep an open mind as you go in there, and let us know if you see things, or if there's even features or layers or things that you're interested in, or reports that you're interested in getting out of this. Or if you find things confusing, and then ways that we can make it less confusing. So that's all I have. And surprisingly, we're under an hour, which is great. So I would love to take any more feedback, or feedback or questions, if anyone has any. There's silence. From Jules. Okay, well, I don't have anything else. I'm here. So my email is alice@unols.org. mfp@unols.org also gets to me. And my phone number, we will post the recording of this online, and I will send that out to, probably at least everyone on this list, and maybe even further than that. Oh, somebody has a raised hand.
We have two questions.
Okay, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so just briefly, first of all, thanks very much for taking the time to do this, and to, I mean, it's clearly a lot of work. From my point of view, I see a lot of upside potential, especially in regards to the collaborative aspects of this, with regards to letting PIs, to some extent, be involved, or at least have some sense of how to deal with scheduling, especially if they're collaborating with folks in Europe or folks in other countries, which I think has become more and more the norm. And if we're doing global oceanography, that's got to perforce be part of it in terms of a lot of international collaboration. So I think that's really positive. I do think that there's, just from noodling over some of what's available on the site now, there is clearly going to be a need for, as you said when you started, sort of tailoring this, at least for the US system and facilities like the ROV and days and dive days, whether it's an ROV or a submarine or an AUV. So I think that there's definitely going to be a need for that sort of fine tuning in order for it to be most relevant to the kind of science that's going to be proposed. And it's not necessarily deep submergent science, but it's other kinds of facilities as well. Whether it's somebody else raised the point about the OBSIP and other types of equipment, whether it's geophysical or what. So I think that is going to be important for your group to be sensitive to folding in those kinds of capabilities. I also think I just wanted to provide a sort of a cautionary note that this business of having to request to somebody to unlock something that is part of your proposal or sort of your work, and that sort of rubs me the wrong way, and it's the sort of Google and Facebook approach to life, which I hate. And so I think that there should be a way that the generators or the PIs of a certain proposal have the ability to go in and change things with appropriate notifications that go back to UNOLS to say, hey, something's changed and the PI made a change, and so you know that, right? And that goes for the schedulers too, because some changes might impact scheduling decisions. So I would ask you to think about that in terms of how you deal with having to give back permission to somebody who's actually put in a request and gotten a proposal funded and whatnot.
Yeah, and you can understand, I mean, some of that came from, well, that's how the other people do it, but that's not always the way to do it. And it's trying to keep a handle on these changes. And so we have talked to the developers about potentially doing some sort of, change log, and that's informative, that sends out notices, and we're not there yet. But that your request is duly noted, Dan.
We have a question in the chat from Lisa Beal. Could you go over once again, clicking from login to request?
Clicking from login to request. Yes. So you've logged in. I will go back here and log out. So I'm on the home page here. You can request an account at the top right over here. This schedule, this is where the public will go to view our schedules in the future. And then we have the system information here. Like I said, if you click request an account and you put your email in and it says, sorry, your email's already used, then come back here and go click forgot password. So I'm going to log in here with this account. And then you use this button on the top right next to your name. And so click those stacks and you see the modules that are available to you. If you don't have that stack, or if you don't have this, I don't think you probably only have these first 3 modules available. But if you don't see those, please let us know.
And which one do you click to start a request?
Oh, start a request. I'm sorry. Thanks, Brady. You click, Science Portal. Sorry, you should have, you should have the schedule, the Science Portal, and the Research Planner as a scientist. So Scientist Portal, and then new application, and then new ship time request. So the difference in these systems, one is a live system and one was the test system I was showing you earlier. So in the live system, you only see this one request. Okay. Anything else? Great. So again, keep an eye out in the system for projects that you have, that are already in STRS, and if you feel like you need something over sooner rather than later, let us know. It is a work in progress. You can imagine it is a lot of work, and so it's a matter of we're doing the best we can in translating the information. Okay, go ahead. We have another question. Daniela? Yeah.
Yes, hi Alice. Thanks very much for the intro to the system. One feature that seems to be new is that you could select multiple ships. that we didn't have that capability in the ship time request system. Is that right?
So in the ship time request system, you had the ability to say that you wanted a specific ship, or you had the ability to say, I wanted a global, or I wanted an ocean intermediate, or you wanted a class of ship.
Right.
And so it's similar, but a little different. Yeah.
But now you can actually click on the different ships. If you wanted an ocean class vessel, you can now list and click all the ocean class vessels to potentially find one that will work for your timing, because some of these ocean class vessels may not be in the ocean basin that you want when your cruise is planned.
Right. And that a lot of that, I will caution that just because you choose one ship doesn't mean you're going to get scheduled on that ship, right? It's really dependent on the schedules, and 2022 and 2023 are crazy years, only because of what we've just been through with the COVID, and we kind of have a backlog. And then in the future, the schedulers and the funding agencies are looking to get efficient schedules that meet everybody's needs. And so we try to accommodate the ship that you requested, but it's not always the case.
So that brings another question. So the scheduler, you said, for 2022 are presumably meeting now.
Mhm.
And if you requested a ship that's not going to be in the ocean basin that you're planning to do your work, will they automatically move you to another ship that will be?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the schedulers go through a process where, if you have an ocean class vessel, you look for all the projects, not only that were requesting your vessel, but requesting other ocean class vessels. And so they do have a holistic approach to the whole thing. Again, it's, 2022 is a hard year simply because we have a backlog from 2020 and 2021.
So we could expect maybe our cruise be shifted to 2023 then,
Potentially.
especially if we're asking for the ROV Jason or the AUV Sentry. I
Yes,
hear those are really backlogged.
they are very backlogged. Yep, the Jason schedule is chock-a-block. And so the schedulers are working hard to try to figure out the most efficient, they're most efficient and the best use of all those. So it should be coming out soon.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, any other questions? Whew, we're going to finish on time. That's incredible. Well, I'm here. We are here. mfp@unos.org is an address to keep in mind. You can always call me if you've got questions. We're happy to help. Okay, thanks everybody. With that, we're going to stop recording.